Imagine this. You are standing in a battlefield. The ground is shaking under thousands of marching feet. Dust is filling the air so thick you can barely breathe. And behind you, your own army is watching, not to protect you, but to decide whether you deserve to live. Because if you make one mistake today, you might not die from the enemy. You might die from your own commanders. This was not fiction. This was the Roman Empire. And its military discipline system was so brutal, so precise, and so terrifying that it turned ordinary men into one of the most unstoppable war machines in history. But here's the question. How did Rome control tens of thousands of soldiers without modern technology, guns, or communication systems? The answer is not strategy. It is fear. Structured fear. And today, we're going deep into the most terrifying military discipline system ever created. The machine called Rome. To understand this, you need to forget modern armies. No radios. No satellites. No instant communication. In ancient Rome, control was everything. And Rome didn't build an army. It built a machine. A living machine made of soldiers called legions. Each legion had around 5,000 men. But what made them deadly wasn't just training. It was discipline that reached into every second of their lives. From the moment a soldier woke up to the moment he slept, he was being watched, not as a person, but as a unit of war. And the man enforcing that system? The centurion. A hardened veteran. A man who earned his rank not through politics, but through survival. He carried a staff called a vine stick, not for decoration, but for punishment. One wrong step in formation? Strike. Misdrill? Strike. Disrespect? Worse. In Rome, discipline was not a guideline. It was law carved into flesh. Life inside a Roman legion. A Roman soldier's day started before sunrise. No comfort. No excuses. They would wake up in cold camps built overnight from scratch. Then immediately, drill, marching, weapon practice, digging trenches, building forts, and marching again. But here's what made Rome different. They didn't train for hours. They trained for exhaustion. A soldier didn't stop when he was tired. He stopped when the centurion allowed it. And if you think this was just harsh training, listen carefully, because Rome believed something very simple. A soldier who fears his commander more than the enemy cannot be defeated. And they proved it again and again. But the most terrifying part of Roman discipline wasn't daily training. It was punishment. The system of fear. Rome had multiple levels of punishment. Some were humiliating. Some were brutal. And some were legendary in their terror. Let's start with the basics. If a soldier disobeyed orders, he could be beaten in front of his unit. Not privately. Publicly. Because humiliation was part of control. But for serious failure, something worse happened. He could be forced to sleep outside the camp walls. Imagine that. In a world where night raids were common, being outside the fortress wasn't punishment. It was a death sentence waiting to happen. But Rome saved its most horrifying punishment for something rare. Something called decimation. Decimation. The nightmare within the army. If an entire unit showed cowardice, if they broke formation, if they abandoned the battlefield, Rome didn't just punish leaders, it punished everyone. Here's how it worked. The unit was divided into groups of 10 men. They drew lots. One man from each group, selected by chance. Then, his own comrades would kill him. Not the enemy, his brothers in arms. The remaining soldiers were then given disgusting rations, barley instead of wheat, and forced to sleep outside the camp. Now think about that. Imagine fighting beside someone for years, sharing food, blood, survival, and then watching fate decide who dies tonight. That is not just discipline. That is psychological warfare inside your own army. And Rome used it sparingly. But the possibility of it was always enough. Because every soldier knew, if I fail, I might not just die. I might be chosen. why this system worked. Now you might ask, how could anyone survive under this pressure? Why didn't soldiers just run away? The answer is simple. Because Rome balanced fear with reward. Yes, discipline was brutal, but loyalty was rewarded. Soldiers were given land after service, citizenship, money, status. In a world where most people had nothing, Rome offered everything if you survived. And more importantly, the Roman system created identity. You were not just a man. You were a Roman soldier. And that identity was stronger than fear. But discipline alone didn't win wars. Training did. Training that built legends. Roman soldiers didn't just fight. They rehearsed war like a ritual. They trained with weapons heavier than real swords. They marched with double weight loads. They built forts every single night, even when staying only one night. Why? Because Rome believed, we do not react to war. We are war. By the time a soldier faced a real battle, it didn't feel new. It felt like another drill. And this is why Rome could fight enemies who outnumbered them. Because their soldiers didn't think. They executed. The centurion, the heart of discipline. But none of this would work without one key figure. The centurion. He was not just a commander. He was a symbol of fear and respect combined. A centurion would be the first into battle, and the last to leave. He had authority to punish instantly. No approval needed. No delay. And soldiers respected him because he was one of them. He rose through pain, not privilege. In many ways, the centurion was the living embodiment of Rome's system. Strict, relentless, unbreakable. The cost of perfection. But let's not romanticize this. Rome's system worked, but it came at a cost. Fear creates obedience. But Rome believed something powerful. That discipline built under fear becomes strength under fire. And history seems to agree. Because Rome didn't just survive. It dominated for centuries. So the next time you think about the Roman Empire, don't just think about emperors, or temples, or gladiators. Think about the soldier standing in the dust, listening to the sound of marching boots behind him. Because in Rome, discipline wasn't just a system,